All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another golf video. This week, we're diving into the Texas Open. We're going to talk about the tournament. I'll kind of go through what my thoughts are on the course and what type of guys fit the bill for the course. We'll go through some of the favorites and break them down as well. But as always, guys, keep an eye down on the pinned comment. That'll take you to all of my final plays. So I'm ultimately rolling with myself. If that does interest you, keep an eye down on the pinned comment. Absolutely free. All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. I tell you guys I'm a dummy all the time. They don't suck. They've just been sucking. Get them down to -3 for more juice than Jose Canseco in his prime. Tell me you're new without telling me you're new. So don't go jumping down my throat in the comments, right? If you want to fade me, or if you do want to ride me, this still leaves a bad taste in my mouth, right? And remember, more chins, more wins. So last week was a pretty good week for us. I mean, yes, you see a decent amount more X's than you do green check marks, but Minwoo Lee was our biggest play, a 0.5 unit play. Everything else is a quarter unit. He came through for us for that top 30. I mean, the dude won the tournament, so we'll take that. He was also a one-and-done pick for me, so that elevated me in a one-and-done contest that I'm in, so I'm very excited about it. We also had him in a matchup that came through. Taylor Pendrith also came through, and then Lee Hodges, who I like this week as well, he came through, and that was also a half-unit play. So our two biggest plays, Minwoo and Lee Hodges, both of those come through for us, so very excited to see that. We're still having a difficult golf season, to say the least, but let's string a couple positive weeks together. Really haven't been able to do that consistently so far, so let's go ahead and dive into the Texas Open. In terms of this course, we are at TPC San Antonio, and we can see via datagolf.com the course fit tool. We use this to kind of get a sense of how this course will play and what statistical categories and obviously, I guess just parts of the game kind of fit best here. And you can see approach, this is pulling this radar point way out here. We also have around the green and driving distance. I'm a little bit more focused on, I guess, approach this week. Around the green definitely factored into our model, as is putting and driving distance. Driving distance from a perspective of, well, I'm seeing driving accuracy really doesn't matter all that much. So we factor driving distance in because of that, because that means you can send it, right? There's not much penalty here. In fact, looking at this hole by hole, we see that the penalty of a missed fairway with a driver, say if you are trying to hit it long, doesn't really outweigh the gain. So most guys will probably play this to some degree aggressive and pull out the driver. If we look at the last 10 years here, you could see in the last 5 or so, there really isn't too much. No red numbers indicate this ranking in the top 5 of difficulties in that stat category. And you can see, like I said, dating back to 2021, 2019 even, not much to go off of here in terms of where this course is, notable. This is a fairly difficult course, right? I guess overall, you can see if we look at the general here, you can see overall it's a par 72, 7,300 yards. Scoring info, it plays just a little bit above tour, average here at above par at plus 0.39. Par 3s play above par. Par 4s play above par, par 5s play just slightly below par. That kind of matches up what we're seeing with here. Now, this is this tournament, 2024, 23, and 22. So now we're factoring in just the last 3 years. You can see the par 5 scoring actually is above par. So there's not a single version of the hole, par 3, par 4, or par 5, that is playing below par here, which does kind of make sense overall when we do look at this and say, okay, well, overall, let's look at the last few years of the par 5, still slightly below, but in general, plus 0.56 just a year ago, right? So we know this isn't going to be the easiest of courses. We know we're going to focus on approach. You can even see here, greens in regulation, about 6 percentage points below tour average. Fairways in regulation, almost 9 percentage points below tour average. So like we mentioned, accuracy doesn't matter all that much. And you can even see this here. This is the last 3 years. Everyone ranked, where they finished 1 through 20. Akshay winning last year against Denny, right? In that playoff. This is the one where he hurt his shoulder celebrating before the playoffs. But you can see here, there is a decent amount of red in terms of strokes gained off the tee of these guys finishing in the top 10, in the top 20. Not as much in the approach. So we know that that's going to be an emphasis around the green and putting. Here and there, you'll see some deep reds, but for the most part, towards the top of this list, a lot of guys that, got up and down, gained strokes around the green, and putted fairly well. So we have all of that built into our model. we went pretty deep. These are the stats that we're looking at in terms of our model. We can walk through it here in terms of how we built it. Strokes gained off the tee, 10%. Driving distance, 10%. So those are kind of the off the tee and tee shot metrics that we're looking at. But then we have a few different things built out in terms of the approach. Straight up strokes gained approach last 27 rounds, 20%. Approach to this type of, approach in the last 5, 10%. Approaches for greens in regulation inside that 125 to 150 mark, and then we move into the around the green. 10% just straight up around the green in the last 27. Around the green on overseed grass, that is the type of grass that we have here. We have that kind of factored in, and then same thing with the putting. You can see putting, we have overseed built in, so we have 11 courses that we're pulling from. And then the last two would be bogey avoidance and par 5 scoring. Like we had mentioned, this course plays over par, right? So if we can get guys to avoid playing over par and guys to score on those par 5s, which historically they're obviously the only holes that play below par. Again, if we look at this, par 3, 3.07 is above 3, 4.08 is above 4, 4.76, though it is a little bit higher than tour average, that is still 0.24 strokes below what that par is. So we want guys that can go out there and score on this par 5. We have this model built out, but before we get into our plays and the guys that we're liking, we'll look at some of these top names here. And I'm actually going to go through and I'll start favoriting guys. We haven't favorited anyone yet, so you'll actually see that process. I know you guys liked it last time I did it, where we kind of picked our guys as we went and I talked through my thought process. So we'll get to that in just a second. But here we'll start with Ludwig Åberg, the number one guy in the field. Not necessarily, the best of track record since winning the Genesis there, like in the approach, 2.4 strokes lost at AP, and then we had 2 strokes lost at the Players. Around the green, didn't really check out either for either of those. Putting, kind of neutral, at the Players. Gained strokes at the Arnold Palmer, that's good to see. His greens in regulation, very good over his last 10 rounds. His driving accuracy and ball speed, very good. Around the green again, and putting, not exactly all that much. 3 putting, 9.3% is tour average. In his last 10 rounds, he's at a 16.7%. He is converting birdies, which is nice, but still, we do see some sort of yikes when we look at this, right? And if we do want to look at how he's done here, we can see last year, T14. In fact, that's even built in right here, right? T14, and then a couple years back, he did end up getting cut, and he lost his strokes pretty much all across the board except off the tee. So Ludwig Åberg, I don't necessarily love the odds for him, but he's a guy that is probably going to gain strokes off the tee here. We worry about his putting and approach. He's not necessarily going to make my list today as the favorite, but I can't sit here and tell you that I hate the guy. I mean, he finished T14 here just a year ago. Tommy Fleetwood is the next one. Now, Tommy Fleetwood, still kind of a mixed bag in terms of what we're seeing, but all but one tournament this year, he's gained a ton of strokes in the approach, and then 2 of his last 3, he's actually gained around the green and then putting, even though he didn't really play all that well from an approach or around the green perspective. Putting and off the tee, which are 2 things we're factoring this week, we're very good at the Valspar. Accuracy, again, we're not emphasizing accuracy, but it doesn't hurt to see it. Around the green, gaining some strokes. Ball speed, right around tour average, I guess. Putting doesn't look all that bad. So Tommy Fleetwood, definitely someone that I'd consider. You could see here, approach the green last 5 is that only red box that we're seeing in him. So Tommy Fleetwood is a guy that I'm going to star and consider as we move forward. Let's move on to Corey Connors, who has just been playing phenomenally, right? Look at him coming into this one. Actually, just look at his 2025 body of work starting, the Century T5. Then he kind of goes through a little bit of a drought. But then with the Genesis, he comes roaring back. T24, okay, but he missed a bunch of spots here. Tee to green, ball striking, approach, really good around the green, really good putting. But after that, just outright 3 at the Arnold Palmer, T6 at the Players, T8 at the Valspar, and right where we want these. Around the green, approach, some putting, definitely off the tee, looking very good. Now, he is an accuracy guy over distance, right? We can see it here. We're prioritizing distance this week, so that is worth mentioning, but the way he's playing and him in form here, you really can't knock it. And he's also had some decent success here at this one. You could see back in 2019, he won it. And then when it gets rebranded to the Valero, he's actually been very good. T14, T35, 1, and 25. And again, in the model, you can kind of see that here as well, right? Last 5 years, dude's been dominating. So Corey Connors doesn't do anything exceptionally in terms of what we have built into our model, but his form and his course history would give me something to consider. Now, Patrick Cantlay, I don't want to be too early here. He is coming off a T12 at the Players. I wouldn't say he's having the best of seasons overall, right? But got to be a guy that we're considering, because even though he's not playing extremely well, since the AT&T, this dude is picking up a ton of strokes on the approach. He's ball striking well. Tee to green, been decent, right? Putting's been there and hasn't been there. Kind of a mixed match here. Accuracy, not the focus, but he is going to drive it. Ball speed, clearly above, tour average there. Around the green, like I said, kind of a mixed bag, but for the most part, been pretty good. And we can even see just in the model, right? Like nothing too deep green except par 5 scoring average, which we love to see number 1 here in this field. The only thing that I will say is that nothing is like exceptional, but he's definitely not doing anything bad. Like we don't see these deep reds or even these light pinks for Cantlay. So out of these first 4 that we've mentioned, he's probably the main guy that I would like. And I do like his odds a lot more too. I think he's obviously doesn't necessarily have the form or this season success, but very comparable to some of these guys, and I should say competitive to some of these guys overall. So Fleetwood and Cantlay are probably the names at the top of the list here that I would consider. Let's get into some of the guys that I'm liking. So we have this built on our model. We just filtered now to the model rank. Lee Hodges, probably one of my number 1 guys this week. Am I as confident as him this week as I was Min Woo last week? Not necessarily, but overall, even these gray numbers, they're low gray numbers. And what I mean by that is, yes, on this bet number model, we're not seeing this as a deep green or anything like that, but we're not seeing any egregious numbers like 88 or 79, 85, anything like that, right? We're seeing, okay, 36, 50, 44, 59, 64, 42, bogey avoidance use, par 5 scoring average use. So Lee Hodges, I do really like this week. Denny McCarthy is one that I'm considering. His putting has not been, I would say, what we'd be used to seeing from Denny McCarthy. You can even see here, we'll bring up his last 24 rounds and kind of just go through it overall. His putting, 5-7. I guess I shouldn't say that, but his putting hasn't been consistent. Look at his round 4 putting. Losing strokes there. Round 3 putting, okay, gained in the last 3. Round 2, okay, gained. Round 1, gained. So I guess the problem with him probably is round 4 overall. But even still coming down here, 0.7 strokes gained putting, just right on tour average with birdie conversion, right on tour average with 3 putt percentage. Around the green, not all that good, but if he is able to putt on these overseed grasses, like we can see right here, right? Number 1 in the field putting on this specific grass, number 7 around the green. Those are 2 factors that we're factoring in. I don't mind Denny, and we obviously already mentioned him, right? He did come in second in that playoff against Akshay just a year ago, so doesn't seem like a bad spot for him either. Keith Mitchell, another guy that I am liking here, kind of greens out the board, definitely from the distance and off the tee, but from the approach over the last 5, the dude is clearly hitting the ball well, and you can even see it right here. His last 2 tournaments, right? Valspar and Houston Open. 4 strokes gained on the approach, 3.2 strokes gained on the approach. Hopefully he can keep that going. Does he have the best around the green numbers? No, but I think that's offset to some degree by obviously how well he's doing in terms of off the tee. So I like Keith Mitchell here, and obviously looking like 2 top 20s over the last 4 years overall. Now another one would be Victor Perez. Yes, he's been a little erratic, you can even see here, but the approach has been okay. The around the green has been okay. Last 2 times he's played, the putting has looked okay. He's coming off of 3 of his last 5 weeks here, top 20s, or actually 1 T22 in there. So this is definitely a guy that I think has some value within him. Daniel Berger kind of in that same boat. I would say Daniel Berger's a matchup king in my brain this week. I do like him a lot in the matchup. And then same thing when it comes to Woodland and Smalley. These are probably the last 2 names that we'll talk about here in the video. Actually, Trey Mullinax was one to a long shot that we had, and just because of his green across the board here. But back to Smalley, the approach last 5 hasn't been all the great, and you can even see it, right? Look at this. Where's the deep red in the approach? We know that that's going to be massive, but I think he's going to make up for it around the green. I think he's going to make up for it off the tee, and the dude, should get back to playing good golf, I would hope. T14, T18 prior to the Valspar and the Houston Open, in which he's cut back-to-back. I'd be surprised if he goes out there and gets cut 2 times in a row, right? But Woodland being a name that I really do like. We saw him come into form last week. He tore up that last round, right? If we want to look at him, actually, let's take a peek at his 4th round last week at the Houston Open. The dude was electric, right? And you know this, right? From him, we don't have to worry about ball speed. We don't have to worry about accuracy, but ball speed off the charts, 15 yards above tour average. Love to see that. So right here, you could see. Overall, it's like, yeah, I mean, he's had a mixed bag. Really good at the Houston Open. Look at that 4th round. That 4th round was great. Even this, yes, it's a pink number, but that's 0.08 strokes lost around the green. 3rd round was pretty good. Round 2 was pretty good. I do worry about him around the green. This guy would have won this tournament no question in my mind, had he not had a terrible day one. You know what I mean? Like overall, had he not had a terrible day one, he was 18 under for the following 3 rounds, right? 6 under, 4 under, 8 under in round 4. Round 1 stunk it up. So I think Woodland's coming into form, whether it's off the tee or approach or putting. I think all of those facets are going to help him here in this one. A little bit above tour average in terms of birdie percentage. I just worried to some degree around the around the green, I guess I should say. But overall, in terms of his approach, whether it's the last 5 or just the last 27 rounds that we have factored in, looking very, very good. And like I said, Trey Molinak's kind of the last name that we have to bring up here. He just has a lot of green boxes involved, but doesn't have the best course history overall, which we didn't even mention with Woodland. 2 years hasn't played, but prior to that, T6 and T8. So these are the names that I'm considering as of right now. Obviously, we'll keep going through the model here and pulling out some plays that we do like, Kevin Roy, another one that we could consider. I'm really looking for guys that Jeremy Paul, who I will star, but absolutely blew up on us last week. But what I'm looking for here are guys that have no red or pink involved in their data, right? And have some deep greens, meaning they do a few things that are going to be special at this course. So we'll continue. Keep an eye on the pinned comment. Like I said, that takes you to the final plays. If you guys are interested in that, when I'm actually rolling with myself, if you want to ride or if you do want to fade, keep an eye down there. But let's put 2 positive golf weeks in a row together. That would be very, very, very exciting for me because, like I said, we've been spotty this golf season, have a couple really good weeks, but we've had some bad weeks as well, and that is just golf betting at the end of the day, isn't it? But guys, that's going to wrap it up for today's video. Keep an eye on the pinned comment. Make sure you hit that like button and hit that subscribe button, and we'll catch you guys in the next one, all right? Peace out.